In all honesty, it's been a while. I've taken a step away from reviewing the Calico album just because I wanted to give myself a fair shot of going to see the album performed live on tour and also get the chance of meeting the icon, the legend, Ryan Beatty himself, which did I end up meeting him? No. But did Ryan Beatty stand in a new selfie? Yes, absolutely. Just to catch everybody up on the past year as the album had come out, there has been a couple of times where I actually have gotten to see Ryan once at the Grammy Museum. I'll insert a couple of videos of that from when I went, and later on in New York with a friend, and it was amazing. And I know that he's currently still touring right now, but I just wanted to give everybody a quick update on where I've been and why I haven't been posting my album review, because we needed it. And I know that we needed it because Pitchfork once again dropped the ball and did not write another review, and I'm watching to see in the Grammy music circuit to see if that is actually going to get any recognition. We'll kind of see. I know Ethel Cain did not get anything so far, so I'm kind of nervous about that aspect of it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, and it shouldn't matter, because I'm going to give you my review, and I feel like that's more iconic. Feels like it's going your way, and all the lights in the bar turn on. You remember where you came. I just want to quickly say, gorgeous alert. Are you single? I'm just kidding. Let me not be ridiculous for once. I'm also going to take a chance to read a couple of excerpts from my journal from that time period of when I did go see Ryan at the Grammy Museum. First of all, it was an amazing event, and I had a really good time. I flew all the way from the East Coast to LA to meet up with a friend, or to Emily, if you're watching this, hey girl. That was really awesome. And I also got to meet a couple of other fans that were there, and it was all in all like a really cool environment to see a bunch of other songwriters and music people within the industry that were living in LA. It kind of did certify the fact that I don't really like LA that much, or I haven't really grown that much of a connection towards LA ever since that trip. I almost got scammed by an Uber at like 4 a.m, but I did write some like really good excerpts about the show in and of itself, and it kind of sounds like fan fiction, so I thought it would be a really nice way to kind of intro the album review, because I'm just basically gonna summarize what happened at the Grammy Museum when I went to go see him. If anybody gets a chance to see him live, it's definitely worth so much money. I've thought about buying the Noah Kahan tickets, even though I'm not a Noah Kahan fan. I should be, I'm sorry. But the Grammy performance was really amazing because his family was there. So that was really cool to see those people in his life, and also his sister, who he writes about. Oh, by the way, when I got to LA, I was so freaking drunk because at the hotel I was staying at, the Moxie, they give you a free cocktail. So I had like 2 cocktails while I was there. And because there wasn't really a line for the Grammy Museum, I ended up getting a cocktail next door at the soul food place, I want to say. So I sat at the bar and I just got like freaking wasted. But by the time I had gotten inside, I ended up being sober again, so it worked out. But for that like hour or 2 hours and a half, like I literally, by the time I had gotten to the restaurant, when I sat down at the bar, I was literally wasted. So I don't think I was like really in the right state of mind, but it was still super cool to talk about. I also got ready there and I wore my glasses, but every time that Ryan would come on stage, like immediately when he did come on stage, I had to take them off. So I was trying to balance like looking hot and also trying to be attentive as a music journalist. So that was interesting. Ryan got interviewed by Zane Lowe, and that happened live. I think that I had not so much of an issue, but it was very apparent that Zane had just come from an interview previously. So Zane was kind of all over the place in terms of questioning and got like the singles messed up. Like I think Zane had assumed that Ryan released Bruises of a Peach as a single, but it was actually Ribbons that came out first. So it was just like kind of confusing in that sense.
Kind of a situation. I appreciate it. I did want to talk about just a couple of the additional collaborators, because obviously
Zane Lowe starts and he's not prepared for the interview, which is weird. He looks like he just left set, which is true because I think it later came out that he had just done a Billie Eilish interview. So going from a Billie Eilish mode to Ryan Beatty mode, like I can see how that's confusing. The Q&A begins and I feel starstruck for once in a very long time. I never get starstruck by anyone, but I was like so happy to see him. Like I was beaming with joy, so I was actually very excited. And he was actually really funny and very chill. I that's why I don't mind starting the video off saying that Ryan Beatty sends in a new selfie. I feel like he has a really good sense of humor. Like I just like his energy and his personality a lot, which is why I keep begging him to do more video interviews or things that I can watch. And I know he wants to be left alone, but I'm just like obsessed with him, and I can't, like, I won't be happy until I get to see him crack a couple jokes, because literally even paying that much money just to be there to hear him tell a joke was just so much, it was worth it in my opinion. Props to you, mama. Making a song is just like a rough process, but he goes in depth about how meticulous it was to kind of figure out the structure of each song and how everything was going to make sense. So I thought it was really cool for him to talk about that in a room full of people that were aspiring songwriters and musicians, and how much time it actually took to finish writing and completing a song. There were so many moments where he would tell his producer to leave the room, get out of the room, and he would just be in the booth for hours. So I thought that was pretty cool from a songwriter perspective, because on the flip side, like once it's all out and everything, he's like so chill, but just reflecting on the process. It's interesting to see how much care and concern he took towards like his craft and creating something that was going to be not only iconic but so memorable and impactful towards everyone. That was like very authentic to how he felt in the moment. So I thought that was cool. He went ahead and also addressed the fact that this was a completely different direction compared to his other past projects, because where he would focus more on like embellishments or kind of doing different things vocally or trying out all these like production tricks, like he kind of was more focused on the material and the work itself rather than focusing on how to make it interesting or like kind of like out there. It was more so just a project that was based around like he just wanted to make really good music, basically the reason why we all enjoy it, which is for the aspect of like storytelling and it just being good. Like you don't really have to do all this crazy stuff if the song is well written. Throughout the process of COVID, and I guess when he was dropping Dreaming of David, he was in this like really dark period of time but he was just going out and dancing alone a lot by himself and drinking a lot more, just to later question his own intentions. Zane Lowe gives him space to open about his loneliness, and Ryan responds by sharing his difficulty connecting to others or feeling understood. Perhaps it's the reason that he's making music. I really like this because Fiona Apple is 100% the same way when it comes to her music and why she kind of got into music altogether, which is to be able to be understood essentially by other people and have like a piece of material to kind of show somebody about how you feel. I did not think that he was the one that was going out and drinking, but apparently it was him. There's also parts of the interview where Ryan kind of talks about being a diva and being very particular about certain parts of the project, which is really good because once you're in an environment where maybe a producer or other people can kind of like shift your opinion, Ryan was very adamant about having specific things a certain way so that his vision could communicate clearly. He was very much in charge of making sure that each song and each project made it from point A to point B without it losing the soul of it and the meaning of each song. Overall, I really liked the interview, and having his family there and Jacob Bixman there just to be supportive was really awesome. And I thought it was a really nice space for everybody to kind of gather and talk about music. And he only performed 4 songs for that show, but he nailed every single one. And it was honestly 10 out of 10. Probably one of like my most favorite experiences watching a musician play ever. And then the second time when I went to go see him in New York was a lot of fun. There was a lot more people than I was expecting, but it's also like New York. We were waiting in a very long line. I'm like happy that there was a lot of love for the New York show. Am I sad and angry about missing the show with Claro post Gov Ball? Absolutely. Am I envious of everyone who got to meet both of them after? Yes, I am. New York show was honestly amazing. It's one of the best shows I've ever seen. I've never been in a room with a musician that has been so close to performing with no backtrack, with nothing. He's just like very talented. I know that in my journal entry for that show specifically, I was describing him as an Olympian when it comes to music and being a actual vocalist. There is not really that many vocalists I think that could ever compare to where he's at in terms of vocal abilities. So I thought that was one of the biggest strengths from the show, and I think that the musicality of it with the band was really awesome as well. I do think that he got like a little bit frustrated with something going wrong on the tech side of it. So that was like a minor detail, but I definitely noticed him being frustrated about that. I only note that moment because in the previous interview with Zane Lowe, you could kind of tell how much of a hardcore perfectionist that Ryan is. And no matter how chill and how suave he kind of comes across, that there are moments like that in music and playing a show that are just kind of a little bit frustrating. It's not the end of the world, obviously, but you can't stop a perfectionist from being a perfectionist, and it was just a very human moment for me to witness and make that connection. All in all, how do I feel about the Calico album? I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with it, and I know that everybody else is also obsessed with it. It's gotten a lot of recognition from artists like Clairo, Lizzie McAlpine, Elton John, Beyonce, and to see him work on a project with Beyonce, honestly expected, but I am so happy for him to make that crossover. And I'm kind of excited for this new era because originally when I was making my Ryan Beatty video, I didn't think that I set out to have the intention of him being labeled as like a member of Brockhampton and that being like his label forever. I do think that with this project, like he completely carved out a path for himself that is so different from what he's known for, and I think that this is like what he will be known for on top of everything else. And there's no part of me that could ever address him as such anymore. Like I don't think that I can say like, oh, Ryan Beatty, member like slash writer for Brockhampton anymore. Like Ryan Beatty, the musician behind the best project ever, Calico, and co-writer for Miss Beyonce Knows Carter, for Jack Antonoff, for Bleachers. I think that he deserves so much more respect than the label that I had originally given him. So I do think that my favorite tracks from this album specifically are obviously going to be Ribbons, Bruises. I really love Andromeda, White Teeth, and Bright Red. Do I like Hunter as much as I would like to? No, but I know that it's a really important song to him, and it is just based on an interview that I read of his recently. It is based on kind of a literal story where I guess he did go hunting with somebody down in Texas. And I don't know how I feel about that, but pop off. I think it is a really good reflective album. It's a very human experience to leave home and go explore who you are and come back with like all of these like different ideas of who you should be and who you want to be. And at the same time, you go home and you still have to answer for all of these other things that you maybe need to answer to. So some of those things being like seeing your cousins or nieces and nephews grow up, being there for your siblings and your family, and then also trying to find your own source of like love and identity in that process. I do think it's a more stripped back version of him, and it's like a more authentic version of who he is as opposed to the person that was doing all of these extra things, because I think he said that he was more so convinced in the past by doing all of these things that other musicians were doing and kind of focused in on what works for them, but he was trying to listen to that voice in his mind that was telling him, listening to his gut. I am really sad when it comes to Dreaming of David. Do I think it got the attention and like the love that it deserved? No, but when I was there at the Grammy Museum, I think it was very clear it was just not an album that he felt very attached to, and not an album that he wanted to tour, because at that point in time he just wanted to kind of leave everything and be alone. And don't blame any musician for feeling that way, because it's kind of a mixed bag when it comes to having to tour, having to be a public figure, but at the same time all you really want to do is make music and do what you love to do, but at the same time it comes with all these extra things. It's very clear to me that that era is gone, that the Rhinestone Disco Ball version of him was not the authentic version of him, and that we as fans and audience members should respect that. The difference with Calico was that this was actually an album that he did want to tour with. He did want to actually take the time to share the album with everyone, and it was different in that experience. And I think that's part of the main reason why Dreaming of David never got to see the light of day. Because realistically, he had two options, which is to basically do what he was doing originally before and just do that forever for the rest of his life, or really kind of hunker down and figure out who am I and what do I want to do. And that kind of was a really emotional point in this whole experience, was having to let go of the idea that I had for an artist and who I thought that an artist was, and actually decide to grow and change with them and really follow them on that journey, which has kind of been a really beautiful experience in my opinion. Like, he outdid the previous version of himself, which is really impressive, and I have no other choice but to let go of that and appreciate it for what it was, but also move on.
Why do I think that the Calico album is so inspiring? I think it's very telling when you see artists kind of shift gears and how groundbreaking that is kind of for the music industry as it stands right now. If you juxtapose like what Dua Lipa and Ice Spice are doing and Taylor Swift and what Charli XCX is doing, Ryan is actually going in the complete opposite way in terms of really stripping everything down and trying to be as bare bones as possible, which I have a lot of respect for as a musician because there is a lot of pressure coming from outside. And I just recently talked about this on my podcast, Keep the Horse Alive, with Miss Lauren Brodoff. But it's interesting to see that, I guess, in some ways, society kind of tells us that we have to market the crap out of the album. But if the project is good, if the songs are good, if the musicality of everything is good, then you're totally fine.
I also want to put in a quick note and say that I see all of the Ryan Beatty TikToks and stuff like that. I do think it's so fun how much we're pushing him, and to just keep pushing because I'm watching them. And yeah,
I'm mad because he did not get a Pitchfork review, but at the same time, the success of the album never had anything to do with Pitchfork or never relied on the Pitchfork review at all. And in a way, like, he has surpassed all of these different avenues that a lot of musicians decide to take in terms of press and marketing.
There will always be success in music because of the amount of talent that is embedded within his soul and his body, and he will always have the respect of famous, notable singer-songwriters, no matter what. It does not fall on the hands of a single Grammy, an AMA, or one of these awards or whatever. A, Ryan Beatty, you'll always be famous. B, you'll always be talented and amazing. So, and I will always be buying tickets. So it doesn't matter if these publications decide to do things or not, because I don't care. I'm going.
Congrats to him. I think it's an amazing project. I do want to do a quick deep dive into like my key highlights for the album. So one of them being at the end of White Teeth. That is an amazing song, and I do like the little bridge at the end, and I think it's an amazing song to perform and to hear live. Like, it's such a standout. Bright Red as well. I think all of my favorites on the album are not only my favorites just to listen to in general, but those songs live like slap like no other. And I think that his set list in general was really well chosen. And do I wish Party's Over was on there? Yes, obviously. Do I wish Rhinestone was on there? Duh, but I'm never going to be mad at him playing Haircut. Like, that's kind of the trade-off. So, yeah. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. This is me, Nui Foster. Tune into my podcast with Miss Lauren Brodoff, and have a wonderful rest of your evening.